Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
What's going on, Knight fans? Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy with you here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast as we get ready for, the first of two consecutive big autonomous five, shall we call them, games for UCF football. A huge weekend for a bunch of UCF sports outside of football. Wow, it's now we're eyeball deep into football season. Can you feel the excitement, Brian Murphy? Like now the rubber's hitting the road.
I feel it, Jeffrey.
No more preseason.
Oh, it's exhilarating. I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
And there was much rejoicing. Yay. How about you, Lopez?
Yeah, I mean, we finally get to see...
That awkward pause spoke volumes, by the way.
Yeah, we got finally some decent opponents coming up. Now we just have to figure out who's actually going to play quarterback or how many of them.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that and plenty more with the preview of UCF against Stanford. We'll review UCF and FAU and the apparent game day operations debacle that was down in Boca Raton if you didn't go to the game. The football game itself was good for UCF. And we'll talk also about men's soccer, women's soccer, and volleyball, all three of them with tremendous weekends. We are blackandgoldbanneret.com, UCF's home on the SB Nation network. And you can follow us at UCF_Banneret. Follow us each individually at Jeff_Sharon, Eric Lopez Elo, and Spokes_Murphy. Also, don't forget Facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret for all the latest. All right. So let's go back and just debrief from that FAU game. Of course, UCF getting the 48-14 somewhat rain-shortened victory over FAU. The game was stopped with, I think, was it 4 minutes and 20 seconds to go. It was a total.
Thank you, Mother Nature.
Yes, total due to lightning in the area, and fortunately for all who value reason and logic. The White brothers, Danny for UCF and his brother, the AD for FAU, decided, you know what, let's just pack it in and go home. So the storylines from this game obviously was the big one was right off the bat. And Brian, you broke the story about an hour before kickoff that Dillon Gabriel was going to get the start for UCF. And lo and behold, he certainly did. His numbers on the day, he started super hot, but then cooled off significantly. He finished 7 of 19 for 245, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He was sacked once. Quadra Jones came in relief and is still batting 1,000, 1 for 117 yards. But the big story to me was two stories. Number one, the running game, which picked up Gabriel when he started struggling in the second quarter. UCF had 3 guys with 75 or more rushing yards: Otis Anderson, Bentavious Thompson, and Greg McCray. Adrian Killens added 37. 5 different Knights rushed for touchdowns. Those 3 guys plus Adrian Killens and Dillon Gabriel. And then the defense. Even though the stats will show you that FAU had only 1 less first down than UCF, had total yards 314. On 87 plays, which is 20 more than UCF ran. They were held to 3.6 yards per play, and they were chasing Chris Robeson, the FAU quarterback, all over the building all night long. You were there in Boca. On field, What was the big takeaway for you from this game?
I thought for me, it was just how both lines of the scrimmage, I thought UCF dominated at the line of scrimmage on both sides. Run blocking, they could get whatever they wanted. Any gap, too. It didn't matter if they were running off a left tackle, right guard, left guard. They could get anything they wanted on the ground with their backs. FAU blitzes a lot. They send a lot of pressure, and that pressure got home a few times to Dillon Gabriel. Caused him that pressure caused some of the incompletions. So that is something that they probably need to be better at. But the run blocking was amazing, and then for the defense, just getting in the backfield again. I think they had 16 tackles for loss.
Yeah, 16 tackles for loss.
Hilarious talking to defensive line coach Shane Burnham this week, and I wanted to ask him about how proud was he about the tackles for loss with his defensive front? And he's like, yeah, that was probably one of our worst games. That was probably one of the worst games we've had. That was our worst game, worse than FAMU. And, didn't have good hand placement. We lost contain a few times. We missed some tackles. And it just goes to show, we can see, what we see a lot, in the stat sheet and in our momentary glimpse of live action can be a lot different than what the coaches see upon review of the All-22 film.
Well, I mean, if that was one of their worst performances, I'd hate to see what happens when they actually have it going. Elo, you were watching the game as I was back here in town. You brought up that point too about UCF dominating the line of scrimmage, and what I think is interesting is people look at teams like UCF that play the offensive scheme that they do as the opposite of what they do is dominate the line of scrimmage, because you run the spread offense because you can't dominate the line of scrimmage. But that's what UCF is doing. And what was your big sort of storyline coming out of this game as well for you?
I think somewhere George O'Leary was watching with a smile on his face, and he's like, that's the kind of football I like. Right? Because it's
really running plays every 7 seconds and spreading everybody across the field.
Yeah, but you say that, but I'm going to tell you something. You could play that, but the bottom line is Josh Heupel and George O'Leary are not that different. They both believe in running the football and being physical up front. And now the difference is that Josh Heupel, does not huddle, whereas George did. But really, the concept's the same. And we can be as fancy as you want with football, but it comes down to the nuts and bolts. And Murph has alluded to it. Is about being physical up front and dominating in the line of scrimmage. And that's what UCF did, and that's what the George O'Leary teams did when they were good, and that's what this Heupel team is doing well. So while we're going to spend a lot of time, rightfully so, on the quarterback situation, it really didn't matter who was lining up at quarterback, because with that offensive line, which we've said has a chance to be their best offensive line they've had since the Fiesta Bowl team of 2013, in my opinion, when they had the McRae brothers, and the depth and the talent they have in the backfield, this team could dominate in running the football, and that's really, I think, what Josh Heupel likes. And he said that, and he's said that in press conferences about running the football, establishing the run, and then that will set up the passing game and the play action and going on top vertically. I think, to me, that's the takeaway with this football team. It's funny, people have this idea that it's this open offense, but in reality, when this team is clicking on cylinders, really it's running the football and dominating at the scrimmage. And I think that's why, that's why I think if you're George O'Leary and you've watched UCF football, that part of it at least is quite familiar as a successful formula.
Well, it took a lot of pressure off of Gabriel, who had that hot start in those first two drives. I think it was 3 for his first and by the way, 3 for his first 5 and led the 2 touchdown drives. And by the way, there was an interesting number that came from the CBS telecast. They didn't say who the last guy was, but Gabriel had 7 completions. Dillon Gabriel, true freshman, making his first start, 7 completions for 245 yards, and that was the most yards on the fewest completions for a college quarterback since 2003. I would have loved to have known who that guy was, but we got word that, first of all, what was the situation with Brandon Wimbush officially, Brian? And then your analysis of Dillon Gabriel in that game, because it was an up and down game, but a win is a win, right?
Yeah, well, yes. As far as Wimbush goes, the explanation that we were given by Coach Heupel was that he was not 100%. and that they just didn't want to put him out there because, quote unquote, he wasn't 100%. So take that for what you will. I guess I'll just add here that they do expect Brandon Wimbush to play against Stanford this week. Don't know who's going to start yet, but they do expect him to play. Gabriel, I know everybody's going to look at the completion percentage and the passes and the attempts. 7 for 19 looks ugly. I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, it certainly wasn't like he was hellaciously off target that often. Early at the end of near the end of the first quarter, he has an end zone throw to Trey Nixon that's on target, and a really good play by the DB to break it up. He has a deep shot down the field to Otis Anderson, who's matched up, I think, on a safety, who just pushes Otis Anderson down to the ground for a clear PI. That was called. Yeah, but if he doesn't, but like, it was a good play by the defensive back, because I think if he doesn't commit that pass interference, Otis probably catches that ball for a touchdown. That was right on the money. There was a shot down the seam to Jacob Harris, where Jacob Harris turned over the wrong shoulder, and actually the ball still hit his hand. But if he just turns around the other way, that ball's right in his lap. So I thought, actually, and I should be fair here, there are also plays by Gabriel in that game where he just looks geeked up. He looks absolutely amped, and so he makes some throws that are 5 feet over the nearest target's head because he just wants to gun it. And I think they got to rein that in a little bit. But I thought overall his night was pretty good.
Yeah, I thought that, it was good having the running game kind of back him up when he was kind of scuffling there in the second quarter, and then they're like, look, let's just settle down a little bit here, and you'll be all right. Now, we got word also this week, as if the quarterback situation wasn't complicated enough, Darriel Mack is cleared, and he will be. And now, what's the story with him? Are we going to see him at all? I'm not certain if he will play, but he has been cleared to play. Basically, if they want to put him out there, he is available to play. And, we talked to Coach Jeff Lebby today, the quarterback's coach Jeff Lebby today, and it was brought up about, rust. And, he missed all of training camp, obviously, because he's been on the mend since early July with his broken ankle. So he missed all of training camp, and he just got cleared to practice last week. So they can't really expect to throw him out there right away, can they? Well, Lebby did say that, that Mack has been around, he's been in the room every day. He knows the game plan as well as all the other quarterbacks. His experience helps because he's been with this game plan in live action before. So they didn't say no. They didn't say, that although he's healthy, he's not going to play. They've left the door open. Maybe we'll find out some more tomorrow when we talk to Thursday when we talk to Heupel, and maybe he'll give us an answer about whether or not we actually might see Darriel Mack, because we know we're going to see Dillon Gabriel. We're about 99.9% sure that Wimbush will be out there as well. And it does sound like that Darriel Mack, if they want to, they can throw him out there too. Wow, this is getting interesting, isn't it, Eric?
Well, let me ask you this about a couple things, Brian, and correct me if I'm wrong. At the Monday presser, Josh Heupel voluntarily brought up Darriel Mack, correct? That was not as a result of a question about Mack, right? If I remember listening correct. So he went out of his way to bring it up, which was what struck me. It wasn't like, hey, how's Darriel Mack doing? He went out of his way to bring the fact up that he was cleared up, correct?
Yes. It was a question. I was trying to find it in the transcript here, but there was a question about, I think, Wimbush or Gabriel, and he brings up Darriel Mack, and he just kind of out of the blue says, DJ's been cleared to practice last week, and he's cleared to play this week. And it's like, well, thanks for that. Thanks for that nugget. That just came out of nowhere. Yeah, it was a question about Dillon Gabriel taking away things that he did well against FAU, and he just throws in there like DJ started practicing at the end of last week, and he's been cleared for this week as well. Like, cool. The question was about Gabriel, but thanks for that.
That was fascinating to me, and he even expanded on his coach's show Wednesday night with Mark Daniels about how he's been practicing this week, and even before he wasn't cleared, he's been throwing, and he's been around the team and things like that. It's very fascinating to me. I think a couple things here.
We knew he we knew that he was on the practice field about 2 weeks ago, but like jogging and throwing, and I mean we've seen him throw before game. We saw him throw before the FAMU game. He was out there throwing. He wasn't in full pads, but he was out there throwing and pushing off of his foot, and really turning off of his foot. It's his lead foot, the left one that he broke. So he's been throwing for a while. He's been out there doing just working out and cardio. But now he has been in the offense, practicing with the offense for the past week or so. But again, we'll see if they want to throw him out there. I don't know. I have no inside information on this. This could be a Quadri Jones situation where if the game gets to the point where they are comfortable with it, then they could get Mack some snaps later on, I believe.
Or they could play him early. I mean, this is the thing. There's a couple things here. Dillon Gabriel has played in 2 football games. The redshirt rule is you can play in 4 before you got to make a decision. In other words, if Dillon Gabriel plays in 5 games, you cannot redshirt him. Now UCF could still play him in 2 games and still redshirt him. And I just wonder, Brian, to me, because we focus so much in this quarterback battle, Wimbush Gabriel, because Mack was out with the injury. Could it be possible, in my opinion, that Darriel Mack is the best quarterback for this team for this year right now, and Josh Heupel knows that? The tricky thing that kind of threw this off is the injury, and now the question is, how do you bring him back in? Do you start him right away? Do you bring him in for Stanford? Do you wait till Pittsburgh? Do you wait whenever? That's going to be, to me, the fact. But I get a sense, Brian, we're going to find out, obviously, in the coming days and weeks. And, who knows, we're recording this on Wednesday night. This could completely change, as we've learned in the past, with news coming out Thursday, Friday.
It could change when they take the field on Saturday, for all we know.
Correct. But I got to tell you, Brian, my gut tells me is I don't know if this staff wants to depend on a true freshman for a majority of a game against a team like Stanford. I got to have a feeling they kind of want to use a guy like Mack who's been in a big game before, no?
Yeah, no, I think they're going to use Mack, but I think to your point of they want to redshirt Gabriel. To that, I'll say this. I think they certainly had aspirations of doing that before the season started, when Wimbush and Mack were both healthy. And maybe they had aspirations of doing that before the season started against FAMU. However, I do believe that Dillon Gabriel is probably the best natural passer on this team at the quarterback position. Among the Wimbush, Mack, and Gabriel, I think Gabriel is clearly their best thrower. And there is this thing that Mackenzie Milton talked about last year about the kids from Hawaii, because Hawaii as a culture is so laid back and cool and calm that for the kids to come off the island and play college football on the mainland, that sort of carries over into these pressure situations. And we've seen that with Mackenzie, the way he performs in pressure situations. And I think it was so interesting to listen to Dillon Gabriel after the game on Saturday talk about his first collegiate start as if it was literally just no big deal. Like, no, it was like just another snap.
I think he literally said that, right? It's no big deal.
He did. So he found out on Thursday, according to Heupel, that he would be the starter for this game against FAU. He didn't tell his parents until they arrived in Boca Saturday. Why didn't you tell your parents? I mean, it wasn't a big deal. And I think that sort of mindset gives you a clue of how he approaches the what we believe to be the stress and the burden of being a college starting quarterback. I don't know if he is really wearing that much, because his mind is he's so poised. And I really do think that I think the odds of him being redshirted are probably much less than when the season began, because of that of his intangible mindset. And again, I think he is the best natural passer on this team.
But is it the experience? I mean, we saw Mackenzie Milton in his freshman year have great moments and really low moments. And I don't care how cool a customer you are, you're gonna run into some issues here. And this is a team that, we've talked about it earlier, with the way this offensive line is with this running game, I don't think you need great quarterback play. You just don't need the quarterback to kill you and cost you a game. And I just wonder if this staff believes a guy like Darriel Mack, perhaps, maybe it's a combination. As I've said, maybe it's a 2-quarterback year. Maybe it's Mack and Gabriel. Maybe it's Mack and Wimbush. Maybe it's Wimbush and Gabriel. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting the next couple of weeks how this staff decides on this squad. It's really fascinating. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it where you, in theory, have 3 guys who are different but yet bring different dimensions there. I just think it's very interesting. And I think the fact that Mack's in play, I think, is fascinating to me. Remember, he's a redshirt sophomore. He won some people think that second half at Memphis that you both were at, I want you to comment on. Some people think that's maybe one of the best halves that any UCF quarterback's ever played in the history of the program. Could that perhaps maybe the best case scenario is, or are they thinking maybe we can accomplish our goals with Mack this year, redshirt Gabriel, because he can learn more, and we don't have to throw too much at him, and he could be better off for it a year from now. Who knows? That's just thought process. We're going to know more in the coming weeks, but I think it's very fascinating. I'm just fascinated by where this goes.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice problem to have. I'm still in that camp that's like divided between the, A, is it a nice problem to have, or B, when you have 3 quarterbacks, do you really have any? Kind of camp. I know it's stupid cliche, but
but if you run the football like they can, it may not matter.
That's true. And certainly if they run the football like they did against FAU, it won't matter. So, all right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a quick break. When we get back, we'll talk about UCF's upcoming opponent, the Stanford Cardinal. This is the first ever, if I'm not mistaken, the first ever trip by Stanford to the state of Florida to play a football game in the regular season.
Maybe regular season,
yeah, regular season. So anyway, we got we'll preview the Stanford game coming up and some weather that we might have to look out for with this game. Stick around. Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy with you here as we talked about the quarterback situation, and now that moves itself forward into UCF's opponent for this week, the Stanford Cardinal, who started the year ranked but have since fallen out of the top 25. They got boat raced by USC last week in Los Angeles, and now they have to come across country to face UCF. But before we talk about that, I forgot to let Murph give out his game ball for Saturday against the FAU Owls. I almost gave. I know. It's a bad job. Bad job by me.
This is a long-running Black and Gold Banneret podcast staple, going all the way back to last week. So now in its second week of existence. I have a cop-out answer. I will give the game ball to the offensive line. Yes!
All right.
Everybody there. Because they really were. I mean, really, guys. They were pushing, they were pushing guys 3-4 yards back off the ball. And
they were smothering FAU's front seven all day.
They made it so easy. They made it so easy for guys like Bentavious and Otis and Greg McCray. It really was like, it didn't matter what they did, and I've already said it, but it didn't matter where they were running, there were going to be holes there.
Yeah, so
I love it. I love it. I love the answer. I love the answer, and I love the segment. I feel like we could come up with a logo with a football and then like a hat, or like a football wearing a hat. I feel like that.
We need some sort of drop.
Yeah,
we need some
Murph's game ball.
Send in your game ball drops.
There you go.
Send them to us at blackandgoldbanneret@gmail.com. Meanwhile, that offensive line that you handed the game ball out to, they're going to have a bit more of a challenge this week against the Stanford Cardinal out of the Pac-12. For some news on Stanford coming into this game. So Obviously, we talked about they're 1-1 on the season. They just dove out of the top 25 last week. They lost to Southern Cal, 45-20 in the Coliseum. They did beat Northwestern in their first game, 17-7. Quarterback KJ Costello of Stanford in that opener against the Wildcats was 16-20 for 152 yards and a pick, but he was concussed in that game. And Stanford had to rely on, against USC, Davis Mills, their backup quarterback, who had a pretty decent game, 22 of 36, 237, a touchdown and a pick, was sacked 3 times. But Stanford did not look like Stanford in that game, probably because of just how good SC was. This is Stanford's first ever trip to the Sunshine State to play a football game in the regular season. They've been here for bowl games before, but not in the regular season. Costello is expected to be back. And by the way, he is a legit NFL prospect. He should be fun to watch. However, going against Stanford is their left tackle is out for this game. He blew out his ACL. And what's his last name? Walker Little is his name.
Walker Little.
Yeah.
Walker.
Yeah, Walker Little, a legit NFL prospect of it in his own right, and he is out. First round
guy.
Yeah. So if you're UCF's defensive line, you've got to be happy about that, especially if you're Randy Shannon. You got to have a backup in there to try and put some pressure on Costello and get him off his spot. Obviously, we know how good Stanford is in terms of their very disciplined football team, head coached by David Shaw, who kind of has a little bit of an old school feel to him in terms of the scheme he likes to run. Pro style, they're physical up front, but they're a little slow. Styles make fights in this game, Brian Murphy, and UCF is actually favored, according to OddsShark, by 7.5. OddsShark was weird. OddsShark said that their opening line for this game was 2.5, but Bovada's opening line was, I think, 7, and that jumped up to 8.5.
Well, if you accepted bets on this game, I think 2 weeks ago, there were some places where the line was like 1.5.
Yeah.
So since that that was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you lose your left tackle. So over under is at 61. By the way, 70% of the money is on UCF minus 7.5. 65% of it is on the over the 61. Brian, I'll start with you. What do we make of this game? This is a big-time opponent. This is a big time slot for UCF. 3:30 p.m. on Saturday on ESPN. A lot of eyes are going to be on Spectrum Stadium once again. What does UCF have to do to impress whoever may be watching?
Win authoritatively. I mean, like David Pollock said, guys. It's too bad that Stanford lost. They're out of top 25 now.
Yes, the narrative is already set.
As if that makes them inferior. It's amazing. Yeah. No, I mean, everybody knows what this is for UCF. The guys on the team know what this game is. And it really isn't just another game. I know they'll all say that, and I've been fortunate enough to have a couple guys be bold and say how this game means a little something more because it's Stanford. And I'll write about that for the site later on this week. But it is. I mean, it's a Power 5 conference team. It's an autonomous conference team, as you like to say, Jeffrey. And this is a measuring stick. This is another big measuring stick for UCF to show that, yes, they can blow out FAU, but can they really dominate a Stanford team out of the Pac-12? And so that's what this game is about. It is really to see how good UCF is, and it doesn't matter if Stanford's 25 or 30 or 35. Stanford is a quality team, getting their future NFL quarterback back. It's a very, very good opponent.
Eric, what say you on this? We've been looking forward to this game for a while now.
Help me out, Jeff, and Murph, you could too. Is this the first Pac-12 team to play at Spectrum Stadium history here?
Yes.
I was trying to think. Right? Am I right on that?
Yeah, that's correct.
And I also believe it's the only conference, the Pac-12, that UCF has yet to beat. They haven't played a lot of Pac-12 games. I believe they played Arizona State one year up in Tempe, and I think they played one other Pac-12 game. But I believe they
played Stanford and Stanford.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the 10:30 game on the Owen. We've blacked out 2015. But anyway, go ahead.
That's why I did. That's why I didn't remember. Thank you, Murph. You were living in California, so you might remember.
I watched that game at 10:30. It was great. Yes.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Nobody else did.
You all were asleep. It was only 10 o'clock where I was when it ended.
But the point is, what's interesting about it is, there's a couple things here, because the UCF has beaten a team from every other major conference, the Big 12, SEC, ACC, Big 10. They haven't beaten a team from the Pac-12. So I think I do think that is cool and it's significant. And Stanford historically has been very good and a good program. However, unfortunately, I have to disagree with Mr. Murphy. I don't think this is a very good Stanford team. And the reason is, this is not the typical Stanford team that we're going to the Rose Bowl, and you alluded to it. Offensive line, they've got issues. They were not very good last year in their offensive line. They have injuries. Walker Little, as you mentioned, out. He was a first-round projected draft pick. In fact, many mock drafts had him going to the Dolphins, so that might explain why he's hurt. Just, what else is new?
Dolphins still going to take him, though, at the draft pick.
Probably. Why not? Yeah. We've taken a guy with a mask, before, so, why not? But they got issues on the offensive line. This is not the Stanford team that used to dominate with McCaffrey in the backfield. You mentioned, Murph, 2015.
Or Bryce Love, too. Remember him?
Bryce Love when he was healthy, right. They struggled running the football last year. They only averaged 3.7 yards a carry last year. In fact, they were finished 11th in the Pac-12 in scoring. It's very odd. You mentioned Costello. He has a lot of hype. I don't, he'll, depending on the combine, he could work himself into a first-round quarterback. Mills is a talented quarterback. They're very talented at the quarterback position. And even at the receivers, I think they like, and they have also produced great tight ends, which is, I think, something to keep in mind as well. But they haven't been the physically dominant team up front like the Stanford teams that they were in the Rose Bowl. And that's a kind of a problem because they struggled with USC in that regard last week. And Todd McShay, who was doing the game with Adam Amin, even alluded to the fact that USC wore down Stanford with their speed and athleticism. But what does UCF have? Mm-hmm. Speed and athleticism. So I don't know, unfortunately, I know fans don't want to hear this, and you don't want to hear what David Pollack says, but there is some truth to this. Stanford is a 1-1 team. They lose this game to UCF. They've got Oregon next. They've got to play Washington. They've got to play UCLA. Is terrible, but you never know. Chip Kelly's going to win some games. They still got to play at Colorado, who actually has a very good team, I think. Washington State's ranked. They got to play Notre Dame. This could be a 6-6 team, 7-5 team. It's not going to be a great team. That being said, I think this, as you mentioned it, Jeff, and you're right. It's a matchup of styles. Stanford wants to play slow. They want to limit UCF's possessions. And I think it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, and that's the line of scrimmage. And now we're going to this is the first real test for UCF on the defensive line, and even in the offensive line, how do they match up against Stanford up front? Because Stanford's going to try to be physical and beat them up front because they're not going to want to get into a track meet because they're going to lose a track meet with UCF. I think this is what we're going to learn more about this UCF defensive front against Stanford. I think that's the thing that I'm looking forward to seeing Saturday. And the question is, could Mother Nature actually help Stanford on Saturday?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing that we got to talk about here because the 5-day forecast shows there is a tropical wave making its way across the Caribbean, and the forecast for Saturday is an 80% chance of rain, 16-mile-an-hour winds, and thunderstorms, potential for heavy rainfall. Into the evening. Game time is set for 3:30. This could put the kibosh on some high flying offense if it's a real mess out there. It's gonna be pretty bad. They're expecting all weekend. Obviously, we're recording this on Wednesday night. The forecast can change considerably.
In other words, weather people will be wrong as usual. Could be.
Oh, boo!
Oh, get out of here with your. But get out of here! Get out of here! On behalf of our friend of the show, Eric Burris, take that somewhere else. But if it's bad weather, Murph, Will that help Stanford in this game, or based on what we saw last week with UCF running the ball against FAU, is it basically a wash? No pun intended.
No, it definitely helps Stanford from a couple of different standpoints. One, you can, if it is a monsoon, a deluge, you really do limit the impact that a guy like Gabe Davis or Trey Nixon can have in this game. UCF, we talk about the running game, but they want to throw the ball deep down the field, and they can't. They probably are going to be more conservative if it's a huge storm. And secondly, that rain brings the temperature down, and I think that allows Stanford to be more able to keep up with the tempo. And this is one of the things that we were wondering about heading into this week was Stanford going like Pitt last year, when Pitt came here last year and was flopping all over the turf because they couldn't handle the heat and the tempo combination. That if it was a hot Saturday afternoon at the Bounce House with that UCF tempo against Stanford, would they be able to hold up? Well, if it's a massive rainstorm, then it's probably going to be pretty cool and at least more bearable than a 95-degree day with 105-degree heat index.
Oh, sorry, Murph. Go
ahead.
I was going to say,
it's in Stanford's favor if there is a deluge.
I was just thinking, and I had to get this out there. So, all right, let's say it's raining out. Got to run the football, right? Probably not going to do it very well with Dillon Gabriel since we're thinking he's your pass first guy, right? Does this not set itself up for the return of the Mack?
Boy, you've really wearing tinfoil hat tonight, Jeffrey.
Well, but this is an interesting question, though. Well, this is the thing, though. How do you trust Mack protecting the football?
That's true.
In bad conditions. I mean, that was the issue with him, right?
He had the 3 fumbles in the first half against Memphis. Actually, 4 fumbles and 3 fumbles, and one of them was falling on for a touchdown. But anyway,
correct. I mean, so I don't know.
Confirm that Hayden Kingston will be starting this game for UCF at quarterback now.
Hayden Kingston,
or you could play the quarterback that actually started against Stanford in his career, Brandon Wimbush, which has played in these type of conditions. South Bend is not the greatest of weather year-round. I'm just saying. So it's very interesting. Now, the good news is, yes, it does. I agree with Murph. It helps Stanford. But I also think this does help. It helps that you have a Greg McCray, right? Doesn't that, again, though, this team could still dominate running the football. And on paper, guys, UCF is a better running football team than Stanford. The numbers back that up. You can make the argument that UCF's got a better offensive line right now, especially with the injuries that Stanford has had this year, especially to Walker Little. It's not like the past where Stanford is this juggernaut running of the football. So, again, it goes back to, I know it's I've said it a million times on this episode, the line of scrimmage, doesn't it?
No, I agree. I think Stanford their rushing offense is like 10th in the Pac-12. Bryce Love is not walking through that door. So, UCF is a better ground game, better offense, probably certainly a more cohesive offensive line right now. From that aspect, it helps UCF.
I would like to point out that UCF comes into this game 6th in the country in rushing yards per game and on offense, and 4th in the country in total yardage through 2 games. So that has to count for something here. In addition, by the way, UCF's defense, I thought this was actually pretty impressive. 12th in the country, having given up only 410 yards. And against the run, UCF is tied for 19th in terms of, that's total yards. I'm sorry. Rushing yards per game given up, I beg your pardon. UCF is tied for 15th at 70.5 per game, tied with Florida and Virginia.
There are obviously some caveats to that rushing stat.
I will put some caveats up there, obviously, against FAMU and FAU.
Why.
In addition to the fact that for some stupid reason, college football still counts sacks as negative rush yards. I don't know.
Well, the fact that UCF was crushing both those teams at halftime forcing them to go away from the run. So,
Right. I mean,
but then again, that's part of the thing, right? I mean, that's of course they had to go away from the run.
The opponents are inferior. That's nothing to do with this game. But I will agree with Jeff on this point, though. will say this. I do think this defense is playing a lot better, cleaner.
Oh, I agree.
At this point, they did at any point last year. They are definitely a much improved defense from that standpoint. Because even against inferior teams, Murph, last year, they didn't look clean at times, missing tackles, blown cuts. And I know, again, inferior competition early. But I will say this in Jeff's defense, and I don't know the numbers, whatever. At least the first 2 games, they've looked very clean. They've made the plays they're supposed to. They do look better than they did at any point last year, in my opinion. Maybe outside of that Cincinnati game Saturday night last year.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting to the spots, I think, much faster than they were last year.
Year 2 in the system, guys. Year 2 in the system.
Yeah, that's what we do. But
can I add one thing before we get off of Stanford?
Yes.
Or
I hope the rain does stay away, because we have a possibly outstanding, tremendous one-on-one battle on the outside between Paulson Adebo, a cornerback from Stanford, who's on every watch list a defender could possibly get. He's another first-round guy for the Cardinal. He had 20 pass breakups last year. He already has 3 in 2 games this year. Please have him match up one-on-one every down with Gabe Davis. I want that hooked into my veins.
That should be a good one if we get the chance to see it. By the way, great time slot for UCF, like we mentioned this game, right, Eric? ESPN 3:30.
Yeah, 3:30 ESPN. USC beating Stanford and BYU actually beating Tennessee probably is the reason why this is not an ABC game. It's
right, because they're on ABC.
Yeah. Right. Although they might be on ABC next week if they beat Stanford against Pittsburgh. We'll see. But, I think it's a good slot. Mark Jones, longtime South Florida guy, is going to be calling the action, calls the NBA. He's going to be calling the game with Dusty Dvorak, who is the former Oklahoma defensive lineman, who's the analyst who was part of the broadcast for the great UCF-USF game with Adam Amin back in the day on that Black Friday in 2017. They're going to be on the call with Olivia Harlan Decker. That's the daughter of Kevin Harlan, the great sportscaster, calls the NBA and the NFL. She will be on the sideline. She's the daughter of Kevin Harlan, is married to NBA player Sam Decker. She will be on the sideline, and that's why I personally, like Murph, hopes the rain stays away so she doesn't have to deal with nonsense rain down there on the sideline.
All of the people on the sideline, including our photographer, Derek Warden, doesn't want rain. Nobody wants rain if you're going to be out there for 3 hours.
Yeah, nobody wants rain. Although Derek, by the way, I don't know if you guys have checked out his photo gallery from the FAU game, but it's amazing. Rain always makes for some epic photography. I will say that.
Yes.
That's true.
So the kickoff is at 3:30. Do be careful out there, folks. If the weather's terrible, obviously don't be stupid, and have a little patience with everybody because it's just going to slow everything down by about 50%. But 3:30 kick. If you're staying home, it'll be on ESPN.
I think many of the UCF fans are going to the game that were at Boca last week will not complain about how to get into the UCF stadium after last week. Trust me.
That's true. That was an operational disaster, FAU. My God.
At least if it rains heavy, they won't run out of water at the stadium.
That's also true. Got to start. So again, there's that, and UCF trying to avenge one of the 2015 losses, 31-7 back in 2015. By the way, anyone want to guess the 3 quarterbacks who played that game for UCF?
Justin Holman started.
Say that again.
Holman started that game.
Holman started, that's right, but he left the game due to an injury.
Injured his thumb, and he miss out multiple weeks, or how many weeks?
Yep.
I believe Bo Schneider played.
Yeah.
But ended up starting the infamous Furman game the following week. And I want to say Nick Patty probably was the third guy.
No, Nick Patty did not play in that game. Tyler Harris was the guy who played. Yeah. Only one UCF touchdown scored by.
You got me on that one.
I'm actually surprised you guys are.
The year already.
I'm actually surprised you guys are not guessing this guy.
Because we I blacked out of the season. I try to forget who was on the team. So
help me, Jeff.
Traquan
Jeff,
Smith.
don't leave the win.
Traquan Smith. Yes, the only so you're
Traquan
saying
Smith.
that history could repeat itself. In theory, we could build a tradition against Stanford where we play 3 quarterbacks. It wouldn't be the first time if we play 3 quarterbacks this Saturday.
Yeah, 6 quarterbacks in one game. In 2 games against Stanford, that would be something. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will talk about the other sports that actually happened this week with men's soccer getting a big victory over RPI top 50 from last year, women's volleyball with a clean sweep over the weekend, and women's soccer as well, getting a big result as well. Stick around. The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is back after this. All right, welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy with you here as we finish off talking about a busy weekend for the Olympic sports for UCF, and a big weekend it was. And we will start with women's soccer. They went to Gainesville, and let's put it this way: in the last 245 minutes of play between UCF and Florida in women's soccer, UCF has outscored Florida by a combined score of 8-0. A 2-0 victory for UCF. It was Kristen Scott who had the second goal that wrapped it for UCF. Ali Gudorf had the first one early in the game, the first 2 minutes and 15 seconds, and UCF getting the job done up in Gainesville. Eric Lopez. This was a game that UCF really needed because they came into it winless. They were 0-1-2, and having tied their last 2 games. They get the win over Florida, and now Florida was receiving votes in the Women's Soccer Coaches Poll, the United Soccer Coaches Poll. But the Knights going to Gainesville and get a big W here, and they face Arizona State at home on Thursday. But this felt like the spark win that they needed, right?
Absolutely. I thought it was a complete game defensively. I thought they were solid. Against a Florida offense that's capable of scoring. I thought they got off to the great start scoring early to play with the lead and then held there, and then Kristen Scott with the goal, and then they put it away late in the match. Very solid performance. The match was on SEC Network Plus. I got to watch it a little bit afterwards after the tape version because obviously Sunday, it's NFL Sunday, so I was watching football, but I watched it later. And I thought it was a much more complete performance than they've had in any of their previous matches, and it's something for them to build about. By the way, for everybody that complains about rankings, they hit UCF, they always draw. Why do they draw? What's great about this, in women's soccer, UCF gets their first win of the year, and they're receiving votes. We're receiving votes right off the bat. Boom. Huh? How about that? So I think that's awesome, and it's a big win for them. And now the question will be, can they carry that consistent performance over to their home match against Arizona State on Thursday night? Arizona State, Pac-12 team, talented roster. Coming all the way to Orlando. This is a finish of a home-and-home. UCF played at Arizona State 2 years ago and I believe beat them in a very dramatic match. So I expect another exciting match, and I'm curious to see how this defense can build on that momentum from the Florida game led by Kanya Plummer, the defenseman who obviously was in the World Cup captain for Jamaica's, one of the captains on this UCF team. Was honored as the American Conference Defender of the Week. More importantly, was honored as one of our 3 stars here on the Black and Gold Banneret, the prestigious award that has begun now for 2 weeks. But I thought they were solid. And if they can continue to play well in the back line, because I think they have enough firepower offensively. It's just a question is, can the defense be consistent? And I think Florida was a good step.
Yeah, and by the way, Ali Gudorf also won conference honor roll. She was the Rookie of the Week for that goal against Florida, and you mentioned Kanye getting Defensive Player of the Week as well, so that's some props out to them. Their counterparts on the men's team also had a pretty big week. They had a Friday-Sunday at home. They tied Penn State 2-2 in double OT. Cal Jennings had both of those goals for UCF, but then they get Sunday they played the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, UTRGV. Before you scoff at that, UTRGV last year finished 48th in the RPI, and they were picked to finish second in the WAC. That's the conference that they're in. And the game goes to OT. UCF gets a PK in OT, and Yoni Sorokin puts it away in the 107th minute to finish it off. Cal Jennings and Andres Hernandez both had goals. UCF actually blew a 2-0 lead in this game. They were up 2-0 after the first 3.5 minutes. UTRGV came back with a goal in the 90th minute to tie it, but then Sorokin got the PK goal. And it was funny. I watched the reaction of the players coming off the field, and they had this look. The body language was very much like, "Oh man, I can't believe we got away with this one." But a win is a win is a win. They're 2-1 on the season, Eric, and that could be has potentially a big RPI win for them too against Rio Grande Valley. No.
It is. Well, you get the win, clutch there. I'm sure Coach Calabrese's a little disappointed with his defense, not just in that match, but in the Penn State match. They had the lead in the Penn State match. I watched that, and they gave up the goal there, a couple goals there. They probably wish they would have back, but have won that match easily. So I think they want to clean some things up defensively. But look, they have the firepower offensively. And I'm just going to say this, and I know some people aren't going to like this, but I think it's true. I think Cal Jennings right now is the best UCF athlete on campus in general right now.
You might be right about that.
This guy is unbelievable. And I think, Jeffrey, if he continues this pace, he scored basically 4 straight goals going back to the game winner against North Carolina, scored both goals against Penn State, scored the first goal a few minutes in against UTRGV. And just watching him is just impressive because the thing is, that the defenses are planning to stop him, and they can't. And he's just a skillful scorer, and is such a delight. And I think, to me, if he continues this trend, he's going to be the American Conference Offensive Player of the Year for the second year. He's probably going to be an All-American for a second time. And I think he is going to enter the conversation among maybe one of the greatest men's soccer players this program's ever produced. And I think he has a future in the MLS. Maybe Orlando City may actually do something smart for a change and draft him, because they could use somebody that can actually put the ball in the net once in a while. But he's just unbelievable. I just think he is phenomenal. And I'm just going to speak his praises all year because, man, that guy deserves it. Because I don't think, Jeffrey, you tell me, I can't remember a more exciting men's soccer player that we've ever had than Cal Jennings. And it's just unbelievable to watch his growth. Yeah,
he's been I mean, he's a cheat code. There's no other way I can really describe it. I mean, it's just a treat to watch him play. But I want to give a special shout out to his midfielders, too, because those guys are the key to unlocking that offense. And what they've been able to do to set him up for his opportunities has just been a work of art. And seriously, this is the most exciting soccer team in the state of Florida.
It really is.
At any level.
100%.
And
I agree, 100%.
Will watch. Jennings, by the way, tied for 8th in the country in goals with 4. 3 guys are tied at the top with 6. Aris Briggs of Georgia State, Anders Engebretsen of St. Mary's, and Jordan Hall of UConn. So Cal, interestingly enough, is not even first in the conference in goals. So that might be an interesting race we have to keep an eye on, is between him and Jordan Hall of UConn to see who gets top honors at the end of the year. Men's soccer coming up there. By the way, they are number 16th in the United Soccer Coaches poll. Jennings and goalkeeper Yannick Edel won conference awards this week. Edel was a goalkeeper
he did very well. I'll tell you what,
yeah.
He did very well. The reason he won that, Jeffrey, because defensively kind of let him down a little bit, and he had to make some big saves to preserve those results that they got. They got to clean that up a little bit here as they get ready for VCU on Friday night and beyond.
Yep, VCU on Friday, and the following Wednesday they're at FGCU on the 18th, so we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. Last but not least, women's volleyball. Opening up the 2019 home slate at the UCF Challenge against South Carolina, Albany, and Kansas. South Carolina and Kansas, both kind of middle-of-the-pack teams in their respective conferences, the SEC and the Big 12. Albany actually finished they went to the championship game of their conference, or championship match of their conference, and lost in 5 last year. But these are 3 very much improved teams. South Carolina and Kansas, you're going to get some good athleticism with those squads. And UCF just clean sweeps everybody. 3-0, 3-0, 3-0 in all three matches. The biggest challenge came from South Carolina, obviously, but man, what they did against Kansas on Sunday was really something. Held them to 15 in 2 of the 3 sets. And that was with Kansas basically taking away McKenna Melville in that match. She only had 5 kills in the match, but it was the right size, including Anne-Marie Watson, who just really took care of business. And UCF was able to come away with that clean sweep before they have a big tournament coming up on the road at Illinois State, the Redbird Classic, where they will face 2 top 15 teams, Marquette, who's number 7, and Illinois, who's number 14. So this is now we're really going to separate the women from the girls, so to speak, with UCF taking on that schedule, aren't we?
Well, credit to Illinois State for scheduling that tournament.
I know,
right? I mean, Marquette, Illinois. I mean, UCF. Some would argue UCF should be ranked top 25 based on what they did last year and what they've done so far this year. I think we can agree. I would like to think if UCF were to go, let's say 2-1 this weekend, maybe that gets them a top 25 ranking. But
well, they're receiving votes right now, but they're the last team receiving votes.
Which means what? They're ranked what?
Well, they're ranked. Well, I mean, I don't know what they're at, but they have 6 total. Let's see, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33.
What do you think that is? Is that just because they don't have the brand name in volleyball? I mean, I'm kind of surprised by that. I mean, they returned pretty much everybody from last year's team.
It's because it's because it's unfortunately the American just doesn't get the respect in volleyball that it probably should. Cincinnati, by the way, is receiving votes, and they're receiving more votes than UCF, but they're only 2 spots ahead with 20 total votes. Meanwhile, if you look at the top 25, all right. Number 1, it blacked out on me. Hang on, let me refresh it here. But
Murph, are you hearing this? Are you hearing this? See, it's not just a football thing for all those fans that get upset with the football rankings, Murph.
Everyone, it's rigged. Like Adrian Killen said today, it's on Twitter. Everyone is overlooking UCF in every sport every day.
Did he really did that? He did that? Wow.
Good for him. Good for him.
It's exactly.
Okay.
I love it when you got when Adrian Killens is like it's like hey, this is what I think. I really don't care what you think. All right, so here's the top 25. Ready? Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, Big 10, Big 12, Pitt's ACC. They're 6. Marquette's Big East, but then Big 10, Pac-12, SEC, Pac-12, BYU, and then Big 10. SEC, Pac-12, Creighton, Hawaii, and they're always up there. But
BYU too. Right? Wouldn't you qualify? BYU and Hawaii are kind of like those programs that are
always
like
there.
Boise State's in football and Gonzaga and men's basketball. They're always there. So that's why.
Great analogy. And Hawaii has been in the top 25, I swear, for 40 consecutive years. The Colorado, USC, Mizzou. Y'all sense a trend here? A lot of Big 12. A lot of Pac-12, a lot of Big 10. Florida State rounds out the top 25 at number 25, and then you have in the receiving votes category you have your Colorado States, your San Diego's, your Rice, Cincinnati, Dayton, and UCF. That tells me that's you want to complain about football. You're absolutely right, Eric. It's an autonomous 5-party in volleyball all the time.
And by the way, this is not a media poll. It's
the coaches. That's right. Well, SIDs, but
and that's the thing that people don't get. Like, that's the way it is. Like, coaches are just as guilty as media because they tend to, they will tend to give the benefit of doubt to a program they're used to. No, Hawaii, they're always great, and so boom, boom, boom. That's how this works in every sport, and I think. We're not really, and fans don't help. Fans are just as guilty. They don't want to admit this, but they're just as guilty because I watched Michigan and Army play a really good game. Army played great. Anybody that's followed Army the last couple of years knows they're good. And yet, the narrative was, man, Jim Harbaugh stinks. Michigan stinks. We never give these teams the credit. It's always going to be, well, boy, what's wrong with Michigan, man? I tell you, that's the problem. It's not just the
maybe Army's good.
That's my point. Michigan played. And I think until that narrative changes of, man, that team's really good, and give more of a, instead of constantly bewildering and just, knocking, oh, my God, they played so terrible. Maybe, that's the problem. It's not a college football committee issue. It's not just a college football media issue. I think it's a fans, media, coaches, everybody's guilty of this based on, whatever you want to describe it as.
Yeah. So,
except Murphy. Murphy is right down the line.
Right.
Murphy is not right. Murph, you don't get caught up in all that.
No,
I am my own man, Eric.
So UCF volleyball will face. By the way, this is great. Like I said, number 7 Marquette, number 14 Illinois, and then the host Illinois State. All 3 UCF matches will be shown live on ESPN Plus, and I'll make sure I get the link out for those of you who might be interested in watching. And that's big. And by the way, quick shout out to Christina Fisher, who was named the UCF Challenge MVP. Even though she was second on the team in kills, she was outstanding all 3 matches. And Mackenzie Chambers has become a real force for UCF on that right side. Between Mackenzie Chambers and Anne-Marie Watson, UCF has a solidified right side now, opposite Fisher and McKenna Melville, who are the left side outsides. But we saw, and this actually makes me really happy, was we saw quite a bit more coming from the middle blockers, especially in matchups where I think UCF was outsized. Man, this is the other thing I was really impressed with, was against South Carolina and Kansas. UCF was more athletic than South Carolina and Kansas in both matches, and it wasn't close. The closest was South Carolina, but Kansas, you might think, Big 12, Big 12 volleyball. They've been around for a while. Their team's kind of been around the block. They're a little down right now, but still by comparison, pretty good competition. Much bigger than UCF. They had 6'5", 6'3" across the middle, and UCF just it didn't matter. It didn't matter because UCF was that much more athletic than they were. So this should be a very interesting test for Coach Dagenet's squad against Marquette, Illinois, and Illinois State coming up. So, all right.
Kind of a homecoming of sorts for assistant coach Jenny Bauer, who obviously coached in the Missouri Valley.
Yeah.
Coached Valley before coming over here. He's got a lot of family, friends, and people up there in the Normal, Illinois area. I know they're going to probably come over there, hopefully root for UCF as well. So, and give her credit too, right, Jeffrey? Because she's been part of that recruiting that they've had there with Todd there, the building this young talent, this nucleus that they have currently.
Yeah, and it shows so far, and it's been really something to watch. And the entire coaching staff has just been a well-oiled machine these past 2 seasons. It's really been something to watch. So one last thing I wanted to point out. Props to UCF women's golf. They were up at the Cougar Classic, which was hosted by College of Charleston, up in Charleston, South Carolina, and on what was it? They finished their 3rd round. This is according to UCF. They finished their 3rd round with a combined team score of 279. That's the lowest par 72 score for UCF since the UCF Challenge in the spring of 2017. So props to them for getting it done. It's and playing really well. Maria Balcazar, Anna Laura Collado, who were fantastic last year, are back. Elizabeth Moon is back. And also Tenrata Pidden and Chinatsu Kobayashi contributing for UCF. So congrats to them on an outstanding
birthday
weekend
gift.
Well.
A good birthday gift for Coach Marin, who had her birthday earlier this week.
Yeah, belated happy birthday to Emily Marin, by the way, and friend of the show. So let's wrap this thing up. Eric and Brian. Brian, I'll start with you. What do you have coming up this week as we prepare for this monstrous game against Stanford?
I talked to a lot of the guys. Well, first, let me say as I wrap up here, I appreciate anyone who has listened this far and hasn't turned it off yet due to my smoker's voice / hasn't slept in 2 days.
Have you caught vaping disease, Brian? Is that what's going on here?
Right. I have the undetectable whatever it is vaping disease. I don't know what's happening to my voice, but whatever.
I feel like did you scream a lot? Either A, you must have screamed a lot during the Yankee Red Sox series, or B, you screamed a lot during the Giants Cowboys game. It's got to be one of the two.
Oh no, Giants Cowboys was thoroughly depressing. I was mostly just crying.
Yeah. I was in a fetal position on the couch for that, but anyway.
Probably on Saturday when I heard they were starting Gabriel, I went, "What?" That was what happened.
That's true. That's true.
But anyway, yeah, it's been really tough. So thanks for listening. Secondly, I will put up an article most likely on Friday, maybe Thursday night, because I've asked a lot of the guys on the team about, playing an autonomous, conference team and if it means anything different. And short answer, yeah, it does. So a lot of the players had some pretty revealing and honest answers to the question of playing Stanford. So I'll put that up there. And then I'll have my checklist or whatever it is thing that I don't know what to call exactly.
I love it. I love that you've been doing this, by the way.
One, if I choose 4 things every week that I know I'm going to watch, and if you've listened to the first 2 segments of the show, you can almost guess and know what 4 things I'm going to put down in that article on Saturday morning. But secondly, if you've got suggestions for the title of this thing, because, yeah, I'm a writer, and I also spent like 5 years as a copy editor, but I'm a really bad copy editor. So if anybody's got title ideas, send them my way, because I don't like the way this thing is titled.
Yeah, we got.
What's the title now, currently?
Send your suggestions right now. James Reed, by the way, we need you on this because you're pretty good at branding. Send your suggestions right now to UCF _Banneret on Twitter.
It's currently called, I don't even know, because it's such not even an infirm title, but it's basically called my UCF checklist.
Yeah, it's like your week 2 checklist.
It's like a week 3 checklist for this week. Now, I couldn't do
Murphy's Law list. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, Murphy's Laws. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I will not do Murphy's Law because, one, it's too cliche. Secondly, people don't understand that Murphy's Law is negative. Murphy's Law says anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So I'm not throwing it out there in the ether. Think again, guys. Anyway, since I can't come up with this thought on my own, I need someone else to do it for me. This is how all great people in life have succeeded, by depending on others to do things for them. And in this case, I need title ideas because I don't like the title for this thing that I've thought up. Anyway,
we need something that rhymes with law or something alliterative with the letter M or B.
Also,
Brian,
I will take any wheelchair jokes or any wheelchair puns that's gonna fit into football as part of the title for this thing. Because look, my Twitter handle is spokes_Murphy. I mean, obviously, I'm not shy. So if you have wheelchair puns that you could fit into this, I'm all about it. But I will have that Saturday morning, and then I will definitely try to have the review up on that on Sunday or Monday. I couldn't do that for the FAU game because I was down in Boca till late, and then Monday was just a complete cluster for me. So anyway, that's what I've got coming up, and I'm going to eat 6 lozenges now.
All right. By the way, I do want to give a shout out. to our SB Nation compatriots at ruleoftree.com. Ruleoftree.com. If you want to catch up on what's going on with Stanford, head on over to their site. They do a fantastic job with that. Matt Vassar's over there, Jack Blanchett, and Grant Avalon do a wonderful job. And their entire staff over there, Charlie Foy, all the guys. So make sure you follow them this week. Rule of Tree on Twitter is where you want to go. Rule of Tree. Eric, what do you got coming up?
We got right now on the Black Gold Banneret the aforementioned 3 stars. Our 3 stars of the week for Knights athletes. Obviously, mentioned earlier, Kanya Plummer was one of them. Who were the other 2? Check it out. Black Gold Banneret will nominate and award, give acknowledgement to 3 UCF athletes each week on the Olympic sports scene. We'll be doing that all year round. And then I'm going to be hanging out with Murph in the press box on Saturday there, hopefully helping him with the voice there. If he needs some coffee, I may have to go get him some coffee or some tea.
Can we get some coffee, please? God. Oh,
there you go.
Jesus.
We heard the man's voice. I'll be with him on Saturday. We'll be in the press box. Weather permitting, we may do some videos, but it all depends what weather, whatever this tropical system is called or whatever it is that is supposedly coming here, but probably won't come here because most meteorologists get it wrong anyway. But anyway,
how dare you? How dare you?
Eric is unabashedly going full
I am coming to.
Thank you. What is this?
I'm coming to the defense of meteorologists everywhere.
Very well, good for you. So we'll
13-year-old me is very upset at you, Eric. Really, quite upset.
I'll try to make you happier by the time we hang out on Saturday. Maybe you can rip me on the video on the Saturday there. We'll see what we can do. We'll see what the elements allows us to do, and then I actually got to work and get post-game audio from both teams. So I'm actually going to be hearing what David Shaw has to say about UCF. So I may have to post that on the Black and Gold Banneret as well as for my other gig that I'm working at the football game. Because we all have multiple hats, folks. That's the beauty of covering sports for a living is we just cover. If we have to have multiple jobs, we do it. That's what we do. So we're going to cover this in depth there for the Stanford UCF game. Looking forward to it on Saturday.
I wear multiple hats. I wear multiple Stetson fedoras. That's right. It's a cheap hat plug.
Maybe that's what we should call your
too easy, and I'm not going to count that one.
Can we call it? Maybe we should call Murph's game ball like the fedora hat of the game or something. Huh?
He gets to. This guy gets to wear the fedora.
That's right, the fedora. Oh, I like it. Can we do that? Let's put that to a vote. Let's go with it.
And I will have obviously we'll be captaining the live blog from the game with UCF and Stanford. Will be following what UCF volleyball does this weekend in that big. In that massive weekend that they have coming up. And be sure to follow us along at UCF_Banneret on Twitter, Facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret, and of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com, where we will have, of course, Luke Sierras' preview of the game. We'll have another roundtable with Jeremy Brenner coming up. Lots of stuff coming for you as we get ready for UCF against Stanford. Please be safe out there. If the weather's bad, give everybody a little bit of extra patience. It might be one of those kinds of days out there, but hopefully we'll have a good football game for the national audience on Saturday. For Eric and Brian, I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Enjoy the Stanford game. Catch you next week.